imagine waking up one morning in a life you've worked years to build. You have the career you chased, the relationships you cultivated, maybe even the house, the car, the achievements that once felt like distant dreams. And yet, as you open your eyes, there's this strange hollowness in your chest. A quiet voice whispers, "Is this it? Is this all there is?" You look around at everything you've accumulated, everything you've become, and instead of fulfillment, you feel nothing. Not sadness exactly, not anger, just emptiness. A void that no amount of success, no relationship, no purchase seems to fill. If you've ever felt this, you're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You're experiencing something that philosophers and psychologists have been trying to understand for centuries. Today, we're going to dive deep into this existential emptiness through the lens of Carl Jung and Friedrich Nietzsche, two minds who understood the human soul better than most. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand not just why you feel this way, but what your soul is actually trying to tell you. Stay with me until the end, because the final insight might just be the key that unlocks a completely different way of living. One where emptiness transforms into something far more powerful. Before we begin, if you're drawn to exploring the deeper questions of existence, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who might be silently struggling with this same feeling. Your engagement helps us reach more seekers like you, and trust me, what's coming could change everything. Let's begin. Here's something nobody tells you when you're chasing your dreams. Success doesn't feel the way you think it will. You spend years, maybe decades, climbing. You sacrifice sleep, relationships, peace of mind. You tell yourself, once I get there, once I achieve this, then I'll be happy, then I'll feel complete. And then you get there, you reach the summit. You look around, and instead of the euphoria you imagine, there's just silence. An uncomfortable, almost terrifying silence. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He said, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. But I'd add to that, the greatest burden an adult must bear is the unlived life of themselves. Because that's what this emptiness really is. It's not about what you have. It's about what you've abandoned to get there. Think about it. How many parts of yourself did you silence to become successful? How many dreams did you label as impractical? How many authentic desires did you bury under the weight of should and must? You became what the world wanted, what your family expected, what society rewarded. And in that process, you lost touch with who you actually are. Jung called this living from the ego instead of the self. The ego is the mask, the persona you wear to navigate the world. It's concerned with achievement, status, approval, survival. And there's nothing wrong with the ego, we need it. But when the ego becomes your entire identity, when you mistake the mask for your face, that's when the emptiness begins. Because deep down, your soul knows. It knows you're living someone else's version of your life. It knows you've traded authenticity for acceptance. And that knowing, that quiet awareness, that's what creates the void. Nietzsche saw this coming over a century ago. He famously declared, "God is dead." Now, whether you're religious or not, what Nietzsche meant was profound. He wasn't celebrating, he was warning us. He was saying that Western civilization had killed its ultimate source of meaning. And without that transcendent purpose, without something greater to live for, humanity would fall into what he called nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning. And here we are, living in the exact world Nietzsche predicted. A world where we've replaced meaning with materialism, where we've traded purpose for productivity, where we measure our worth by our output rather than our being. You want the promotion, you get it. You want the relationship, you find it. You want the house, you buy it. And yet the emptiness remains. Why? Because you've been chasing external validation to fill an internal void. You've been trying to solve a spiritual problem with material solutions. And this is the trap. This is where so many of us get stuck. We think we're not successful enough yet. We think if we just achieve a little more, earn a little more, become a little more, then we'll finally feel whole. But the truth, the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to hear, is that no amount of external success will ever fill the hole left by internal disconnection. Jung said it perfectly. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. But here's what makes this even more painful. Society doesn't prepare you for this. In fact, society actively lies to you about this. Every advertisement, every success story, every highlight reel on social media tells you that happiness is just one purchase away, one achievement away, one relationship away. You're sold a dream that if you just work hard enough, if you just become enough, you'll finally arrive at fulfillment. But arrival never comes. Because you're chasing a destination that doesn't exist in the external world. It exists within you. And until you turn inward, until you stop running and start listening, that emptiness will follow you no matter how high you climb. Think about the people you know who seem to have everything. Think about the celebrities, the successful entrepreneurs, the influencers with millions of followers. How many of them seem genuinely at peace? How many of them aren't battling addiction, depression, or existential crisis behind the scenes? Success, in the way our culture defines it, is not the antidote to emptiness. Often it's the amplifier. Because when you have everything and you still feel nothing, that's when the real crisis begins. That's when you can no longer blame your circumstances. That's when you have to face the truth. The problem isn't out there. It's in here. And this realization, as painful as it is actually the beginning of something sacred. Because once you stop chasing external solutions, once you stop believing the lie that more will fix you, you can finally begin the real work. The work of coming home to yourself. Stay with me, because we're about to explore what's actually happening beneath this emptiness. We'll dive into Jung's shadow, Nietzsche's concept of the last man, and why your soul is using emptiness as a wake-up call. Because this void you're feeling, it's not your enemy, it's your teacher. So let's go deeper. Let's talk about what you've been avoiding. Carl Jung believed that every human being has a shadow. It's not some mystical concept or abstract theory. The shadow is real. It's the collection of everything you've repressed, everything you've deemed unacceptable about yourself. Your anger, your desires, your darkness, your wildness, the parts of you that don't fit into the neat little box society handed you. And here's the thing about the shadow. You can ignore it. You can bury it. You can pretend it doesn't exist. But it never goes away. It just grows stronger in the dark. And eventually it starts whispering to you through symptoms. Anxiety, depression, rage, addiction, and yes, emptiness. That void you feel, it's not random, it's the shadow knocking. It's all those unlived parts of yourself demanding to be seen. You spent years becoming who you thought you should be. You climbed the ladder, you played the game, you did everything right. But somewhere along the way, you abandoned the parts of you that didn't fit the script. And now, those parts want their life back. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Think about that for a moment. How much of your life feels like it's happening to you rather than being created by you? How much of your emptiness is actually the accumulation of choices you never consciously made? You chose the safe career over the passionate one. You chose the acceptable relationship over the authentic one. You chose comfort over truth, security over soul. And none of those choices were wrong. They were survival. They were what you needed at the time. But survival is not the same as living, and your soul knows the difference. This is what Nietzsche called becoming the last man. In his book Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche warned of a future where humanity would become so obsessed with comfort, safety, and mediocrity that they would lose the will to strive for anything greater. The last man, he said, is the person who has eliminated all risk, all struggle, all discomfort from their life. They've made themselves small and safe, and they call it happiness. But it's not happiness, it's numbness. It's the slow death of the spirit disguised as success. The last man says, I have my job, my house, my routine. I have everything I need. Why should I want more? And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. But beneath it, there's a question they refuse to ask. Am I actually alive? Or am I just existing? Nietzsche believed that human beings are meant to overcome themselves, to constantly evolve, to create meaning through struggle and transformation. But the last man has given up on transformation. They've chosen comfort over growth, security over adventure, predictability over possibility. And the cost of that choice is the soul itself. Does this sound familiar? Because this is the trap of modern life. We've been conditioned to pursue safety above all else. We're taught to avoid risk, to stay in our lane, to color within the lines. And yes, there's wisdom in not being reckless, but there's also death in never being wild. When was the last time you did something that scared you? Not in a stupid way, but in a way that made you feel alive. When was the last time you let yourself want something without immediately calculating whether it was practical, acceptable, or safe? Your emptiness is your soul's rebellion against the smallness you've accepted. It's the wild part of you that refuses to be domesticated. It's the voice that says, I didn't come here to be comfortable, I came here to be real. Jung believed that the path to wholeness, what he called individuation, requires integrating the shadow. That means facing the parts of yourself you've been running from. It means admitting the truths you've been avoiding. It means allowing yourself to feel the feelings you've numbed, to want the things you've denied, to be the person you've hidden. And I know that sounds terrifying, because it is. It's easier to stay numb. It's easier to keep climbing the ladder even if it's leaning against the wrong wall. It's easier to pretend everything is fine than to admit you've been living a life that doesn't fit your soul. But here's what happens if you don't do this work. The emptiness doesn't go away. It gets worse, it seeps into everything. Your relationships become hollow. Your achievements feel meaningless. You start looking for escape. Endless scrolling, binge-watching, overworking, drinking, anything to avoid the silence where the truth lives. And one day, you'll look back and realize you spent your entire life preparing to live instead of actually living. You'll realize you traded your one wild, precious existence for safety. And by then, it might feel too late. But it's not too late, it's never too late. As long as you're breathing, you can choose differently. You can choose to stop running. You can choose to face the shadow. You can choose to ask yourself the hardest question, who am I beneath all of this? Because that's where the gold is, not in the persona you've constructed, not in the achievements you've accumulated, but in the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are when no one is watching. That's where your vitality lives. That's where meaning is born. Nietzsche said, no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. And he was right. The price of authenticity is everything you've built on a foundation of lies. The price of wholeness is the death of the false self. The price of meaning is the courage to face the void and ask what it's trying to show you. So here's the question I want you to sit with. What part of yourself have you abandoned to become acceptable? What dreams have you buried? What truths have you been too afraid to speak? Because that right there, that's what's creating the emptiness. And when you finally give those parts of yourself permission to exist again, when you finally stop betraying your soul for approval, something miraculous happens. The void begins to fill. Not with things, not with achievements, but with presence, with aliveness, with you. Stay with me because now we're going to talk about how to actually do this, how to integrate the shadow, how to reclaim your life, how to transform emptiness into purpose. This is where everything comes together. So now we arrive at the most important question. What do you do with this knowledge? How do you actually move from emptiness to wholeness? Because understanding the problem is one thing, solving it is another. Let me start with something that might surprise you. The goal is not to eliminate the emptiness. The goal is to understand what it's pointing toward. Jung didn't believe in fixing people. He believed in making them whole. And wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you'll never feel empty again. It means you'll understand that emptiness is a messenger, not a curse. It's your psyche's way of saying, pay attention, something is out of alignment. So the first step is to stop running from the feeling. Stop medicating it with distractions. Stop filling your calendar so you never have to be alone with yourself. Instead, do the opposite. Sit with it. Create space for the emptiness to speak. I know that sounds uncomfortable, because it is. But comfort is what got you here in the first place. Comfort is what the last man chooses. And you're not the last man. If you were, you wouldn't be watching this video. You wouldn't be seeking answers. You'd be numb and satisfied with that numbness. But you're not. You're here because something in you still wants more. Not more things, more life, more truth. More you, so sit with the emptiness. Journal about it, ask it questions. What are you trying to tell me? What have I abandoned? What am I afraid to admit? And listen, really listen. Not with your head, but with your heart, because the answers aren't logical, they're felt. Jung used a method called active imagination. It's a practice where you engage with your unconscious directly, through writing, art, or dialogue. You give the shadow a voice. You ask your emptiness what it needs. And you let it respond without judgment. This might feel strange at first. It might even feel crazy. But remember, Jung believed that the unconscious is not your enemy. It's the source of your creativity, your intuition, your deepest wisdom. It's trying to guide you, but you've stopped listening. This is how you start listening again. The second step is to reclaim the parts of yourself you've disowned. Jung called this shadow work, and it's not easy. It requires brutal honesty. It requires you to look at the ways you've betrayed yourself, the compromises you've made, the truths you've been too afraid to face. Maybe you've been pretending to love a career that drains your soul because it pays well. Maybe you've stayed in a relationship that stopped serving you years ago because you're afraid of being alone. Maybe you've built an entire identity around being the responsible one, the strong one, the successful one, and now you don't know who you are without that mask. Whatever it is, it's time to admit it. Not to anyone else, to yourself, because the lies you tell yourself are the ones that kill you slowly. Nietzsche talked about the death of God as a crisis of meaning. But he also talked about the solution, the Übermensch, the person who creates their own values, not by rejecting morality, but by taking responsibility for their own life. By refusing to let society, family, or tradition dictate who they must be. The Übermensch doesn't ask, "What should I do?" They ask, "What do I value? What gives my life meaning? What am I willing to suffer for?" Because meaning, real meaning, is not something you find. It's something you create through choice and commitment. So ask yourself, if you weren't afraid, what would you do differently? If you didn't need anyone's approval, how would you live? If this was your last year on Earth, what would matter? These aren't hypothetical questions. These are the questions that reveal your authentic values. And when you start living according to those values, when you start choosing truth over comfort, the emptiness begins to transform. Now, I want to be clear about something. This doesn't mean blowing up your entire life. It doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow or abandoning your responsibilities. It means bringing consciousness to your choices. It means asking yourself in every moment, am I doing this because I want to or because I think I should? Am I living from my ego or myself? Jung believed that the second half of life is meant for individuation, for becoming who you truly are. The first half is about building the ego, achieving, proving yourself. But if you never transition to the second half, If you spend your entire life chasing external validation, you'll die having never met yourself. And that's the real tragedy. Not that you didn't achieve enough, but that you never allowed yourself to simply be. So the third step is to cultivate presence, to practice being instead of constantly doing. In our world, this is almost revolutionary. We're addicted to productivity, to achievement, to progress. We measure our worth by our output, but your soul doesn't care about your output. Your soul cares about your presence. This is where practices like meditation, journaling, walking in nature, or simply sitting in silence become essential, not because they're trendy, but because they create space for the self to emerge, for the voice beneath the noise to finally be heard. When you create that space, something beautiful happens. You start to notice the small things again, the way light hits a wall, the sound of rain, the feeling of being alive in a body. You reconnect with the wonder you had as a child before the world taught you to be productive. And in those moments, the emptiness doesn't feel like a void. It feels like openness, like possibility. Like the canvas before the painting, Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." This is your power, this is your freedom. You cannot change the past. You cannot undo the choices you made, but you can choose differently right now. You can choose to stop abandoning yourself. You can choose to live from your truth instead of your fear. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." So find your why, not the why society gave you, not the why your parents wanted for you, your why. The thing that makes your soul come alive. The thing you would do even if no one ever saw it, even if you never got paid, even if you never received applause. That's your purpose. That's what will fill the void, not because it makes you successful, but because it makes you real. And here's the final truth, the one I promised would change everything. The emptiness you feel is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something is right with you. It means your soul is still awake. It means you haven't fully surrendered to the numbness. It means there's still a part of you that refuses to settle for a half-lived life. Most people silence that voice. They medicate it, distract from it, pretend it's not there. But you're not most people. You're here, asking questions, seeking truth, willing to feel uncomfortable in pursuit of something more. That makes you rare. That makes you brave. That makes you someone who's ready to truly live. So don't curse the emptiness, thank it, it brought you here. It cracked you open. It forced you to question everything. And now you get to rebuild, not the life you thought you should have, but the life your soul has been waiting for. Jung believed that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you were told to be, not who you pretended to be, but who you are beneath all of that, in the silence, in the stillness, in the truth. And when you finally meet that person, when you finally come home to yourself, the emptiness transforms. It becomes fullness, not because you have more, but because you are more present, more authentic, more alive. That's the journey, that's the work. And it never truly ends because you're always evolving, always unfolding, always becoming. But the difference is, now you're conscious of it. Now you're choosing it. Now you're the author of your own story instead of a character in someone else's. So here's my final question for you. What will you do with this one wild, precious life? Will you keep chasing external validation, hoping it will finally fill the void? Or will you turn inward, face the shadow, reclaim your truth, and live from your soul? The choice, as it always has been, is yours. If you've made it this far, it means something in this message resonated with you. It means you're not satisfied with surface-level living. It means you're ready for something deeper, something real. And that's exactly why this channel exists, to explore the questions that matter, to dive into the wisdom of those who came before us, to help you navigate the complexities of being human in a world that often feels inhuman. So if this video spoke to you, I have a simple request. Subscribe to this channel. Leave a like on this video. and share it with someone who might be silently struggling with this same emptiness. Because your engagement doesn't just help the algorithm. It helps real people find real answers in a world full of noise. And please, leave a comment below. Tell me, what part of yourself have you abandoned in pursuit of success? What's your soul trying to tell you? What are you going to do differently from today forward? Your story matters. Your voice matters. And someone out there needs to hear that they're not alone in this. Remember, the emptiness you feel is not your enemy. It's your invitation. An invitation to stop performing and start living. To stop achieving and start being. To stop searching outside and start discovering within. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Nietzsche said, no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. And I'll add this. The void you fear is actually the womb of your rebirth. It's the darkness before the dawn. It's the silence where your true voice is waiting to be heard. So don't run from it anymore. Walk into it. Listen to it. Let it transform you. Because on the other side of that emptiness is not more emptiness. It's you, the real you, the one who's been waiting all along. Until next time, stay awake, stay curious, and most of all, stay true to the voice only you can hear. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeking. Thank you for having the courage to question everything. The journey continues.